This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have arrived at the most festive place on the planet. That's right, the Creep Street Podcast.
Of course. And we all know that when you said on the planet, you meant the galaxy.
Hell, and what galaxy is that?
The Milky Way.
That's right, folks. Now listen, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter or X at Creep Street Pod. We also are on TikTok. And, of course, if once a week is not enough...
Yeah.
If Santa didn't leave you enough presents under the tree.
Exactly.
If he left you a little coal in your stocking, well, you know what? We don't care if you've been good or bad.
We genuinely don't give a fuck.
We do not care. Head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of goodies. Now, It's been a fun month, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Already, in the month of December, we have had Zach Cherry on.
I mean, good God.
Then we followed it up with the history and lore of Santa Claus, which...
Oh, yeah.
If you remember, if you listened to last week's episode, or if you listened to that episode, you will know that was actually from our Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
We put it out because we needed a little extra time on today's episode. And of course, being that it is this time of year,
yes,
we need your listeners' stories.
And we need them bad.
We need them bad, folks. Get those in. Get them in now.
If you have seen a ghost, if your friend was in a nasty MLM, if there's a spooky urban legend about your town, if you are an active serial killer,
oh yeah,
we want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on.
Yes, we do.
So please, you can DM us, you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com. The important thing is you get us your stories.
That's right. Now, I know last week we got pretty festive with the history and lore of Santa Claus.
Of course.
But we are about to go way back.
Oh, yeah.
Way back to where it all began.
Yes.
Maureen, what are we talking about today on Creep Street?
You know what? Today on Creep Street, we will be discussing Yule.
Winter Sabbath.
Yes, we are excited. This is a big one. We've touched on Yule a bunch over the years.
Oh, and really, if you do celebrate Christmas, you've touched on Yule whether you know it or not.
You're celebrating.
You're celebrating Yule.
Pretty much all of what we do to celebrate Christmas, it's pagan, baby.
Hey, and there's nothing wrong with
We're
pagan.
loving it. I'm pro that. I'm just saying, it's just interesting how time goes by and it's easy to forget why we have a Christmas tree. Why we have a wreath.
Yes.
Why are we smooching under that mistletoe?
That's right.
It's got some roots way back.
It's got some roots and toots. Let's get to it. it.
Okay, but here's the deal, folks. Even if you aren't a Christmas celebrator,
Yeah, and which is totally fine.
once again, we just genuinely don't care.
We don't care. We want all of you. You're all welcome here on Creep Street.
Yes. So even if, you're not a Christmas person, there's still aspects of the winter solstice that we can all at least acknowledge, enjoy, and it'll be interesting to hear about all sorts of areas where they have something going on.
Absolutely.
For that winter solstice, baby.
And later on in the episode, we might even be reciting sort of what you would call a ritual.
Yes, we're gonna recite it. It is meant to be for a full coven, and there are 2 of us, so we're gonna be playing multiple parts. Now, if you got one, get close to your Christmas tree.
Yes?
If you got a nice favorite mug, pull it out. Put in some tea, some hot cocoa. Or if you don't like hot beverages, that's fine.
Cold cocoa would probably be good too.
It's just chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you gotta do to get cozy, really embrace this, enjoy this, really experience the comfort and joy. Like the song.
Amen.
Okay.
Also, if you would like Creep Street ornaments, let us know because we are working on some items.
In the works.
Some Creep Street merch. If that's something you're interested in, let us know.
Please. Now, I would love to list my sources for you this week. We have some great articles. One is called Ancient Celebrations for Today, Yule, from mabinhouse.co. Then we have Celebrating Yule, The Return of the Light, from seawitchbotanicals.com. Then we have a couple of great YouTube videos. One is called 10 Ways to Celebrate Yule Like a Viking, from the channel Norse Rain. And then, you know what? I stumbled upon an absolute queen. She's a 4th generation witch. Her name is Ginny Metherall, and she's got a bunch of great videos and a few on Yule specifically. And then we have a fantastic book called Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft by Raymond Buckland. So this topic is very interesting because there are so many things that kind of everyone agrees on, but there's also a lot of differing opinions about exactly how certain things originated or exactly who was being celebrated at different times. So I'm going to give you my best overall look at Yule, but of course it does change a little bit from wherever you are. And of course, Yule can be celebrated by anyone, anywhere. Doesn't have to just be in Europe. Oh my gosh, we're in America. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And you know what? For those in the Southern Hemisphere, it's kind of whatever you want.
Yeah, and in fact, in Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, he actually says it's really what's in your heart. If you want to still celebrate it in what would be for you a summer solstice.
Right. It's really all about intention and really just
you're
doing
right.
whatever you want, which
Exactly.
I love, which is really cool.
Exactly.
But at Yule's heart, it is a celebration of the sun coming back in the sky. The sun starts coming out longer and longer every day. The 21st, the shortest day of the year. And let me tell you, we're getting close, and I'll be honest, it's kind of depressing. It's getting a little grim. It gets dark really early.
Yes, I mean, it gets dark at 4 o'clock here in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember growing up, coming out of school, and it being just completely dark.
Yeah.
Like that, So it's tough. This time of year can be tough. Yeah. So it's good to celebrate that the light is finally returning back.
Yes.
And the main ways that are really celebrated or how we celebrate is with a lot of light, obviously, fire in the fireplace, candles. Of course, you can do bonfires outside. And then there's also just a lot of feasting and celebration. It's all about joy and happiness. It's no wonder why this is probably the biggest Sabbath out of the wheel of the year.
Yeah.
The most anticipated, the most intensely celebrated, and according to a lot of people, the most sacred and important as well, as it's bringing in new life and it's the beginning of a new year.
Oh, right, exactly.
But before we really get down and dirty with the origins of Yule, more of these direct explanations of where some of our Christmas celebrations come, I would love to just talk a little bit about some other observances of the winter solstice. And over here in North America, we have some very interesting connections as well. The Blackfeet tribe of Montana, they do something where they place or would place their teepees facing towards the rising sun in the east on or around the winter solstice. And this was a way to kind of welcome the rising sun that is coming up, more and more every day.
Yeah.
And the community would really engage in a lot of games and dancing to celebrate, but they didn't really have necessarily a ritual or like a specific holiday, if you will, kind of thing. It was more so just a time of the year that they noted and enjoyed and celebrated.
Yeah.
Now, the Cahokia tribe, located in or near East St. Louis, Illinois, so kind of the border between Missouri and Illinois, they built several temples and mounds and pyramids, and they even had what we now often nickname it as Woodhenge, because it kind of reminds a lot of people of Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And during the winter solstice, the sun would always align with Woodhenge. And then there were also other sacred mounds in the distance that it would align with as well. And then with the summer solstice, it would align with a different temple and mound. So very interesting there that they have this correlation here with the winter solstice, where it's clearly something of importance.
Yes. And by the way, a podcast we've mentioned occasionally, Blurry Photos, did an excellent episode on these mounds in the Cahokia tribe.
Yes.
Way back. I can't remember when that episode came out. It might be a decade ago now, but an excellent episode to go find.
Absolutely. We'll have to, and maybe we'll do an episode or a Patreon episode or something about that as well. There's also the celebration of Saturnalia, which is the celebration of Saturn, which occurred in ancient Rome back in the, Roman Empire. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more as we go on. But kind of an interesting one that I thought was worth noting is actually LaVeyan Satanists have a celebration here as well.
Well, if it isn't old Anton LaVey, you old SOB.
I can't believe we've gone this long without doing a Anton LaVey episode.
I mean, yeah.
Love that. Fuck yeah. So for those who don't know, LaVeyan Satanists, Anton LaVey himself, that's another story that we'll get into, when we do our Anton LaVey episode, but at least current LaVeyan Satanists, they call themselves Satanists, but they don't really actually worship the devil. They don't worship Satan. It's kind of a way of thinking. Oftentimes, a lot of the people that follow are actually atheists. And it's kind of more of a pursuit of knowledge rather than what we kind of think of as a religion.
Yes. And of course, Satanism is as varied as any faith. But yes, a lot of times Satanists are actually atheists or agnostic, but they kind of use the image of Satan as sort of a symbol or a metaphor, whether that is, enlightenment or rebellion or whatnot. Yeah. But there are also 100% theistic Satanists who believe the devil is real and that he's their guy.
Oh, yeah, big time. But what this is not quite that.
Exactly.
And yes, what they celebrate on December 25th. They celebrate Sol Invictus, which is something that is mentioned in ancient Rome as well. It's essentially the birth of the sun god. This is going way, way ancient, Rome. But what the LaVeyan Satanists currently are using the day to celebrate is the celebration of being unconquered by superstition and consistent in the pursuit and sharing of knowledge. So I think that's great.
There we go.
And you know what? I kind of see that. I mean, a lot of that, of course, a lot of people who celebrate Yule would not consider it superstition, but to them, they consider it superstition. So in some ways, it's very different from Yule, but in other ways, it's, the pursuit and sharing of knowledge. I think that aligns with Yule, especially the sharing and of, it's just, we're all beginning a new and we are growing in this time.
Well, and Lucifer himself was the angel of light, the morning star, the light bringer. Mm-hmm. And that is what that light symbolizes, is enlightenment. Mm-hmm. So
some very interesting things. And of course, those are just quick little things that I wanted to just to touch on to show that all over the world, the winter solstice has very deep and powerful meaning and always has.
Yes.
But let's get back to Yule. Now, the origins of Yule are, once again, like I said before, they vary depending on who you talk to and what time period you're talking about. But the main Yule that we celebrate now is really based on the winter solstice celebrations of Scandinavia, a little bit of Germany, and, UK and Ireland.
Right.
Those are kind of the main Mac Daddies of the influencers of Yule as of late.
Okay.
It's interesting, too, because some of the people that currently celebrate Yule, they really try to stay as close as possible to the pagan rites with heathens. By the way, maybe I'm late to the party here. I didn't realize that heathen was a religion, like being a heathen. I thought that was just like a word meaning like, oh, you're like, crazy or a criminal or whatever. And I realize now that it's the reason why that's thought of with heathen is because I'm sure ancient Christians were trying to put down heathens.
It's great propaganda.
Heathenism. Yeah.
To this day, the word
worked.
heathens is still often used in that way as a put down, as a as to label someone as wild or violent or
like savage.
Uncivilized, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Heathen. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just realized that maybe a couple months ago or a year ago or something like that. I don't remember which one, but Cole or Dylan Sprouse is a heathen. And
really?
And we love that. Zach and or Cody, we're happy for you. That's great.
My goodness.
So yes, some people want to stay as close to that as possible, and some people really observe it more as just kind of assembled from a bunch of different origins and sources, and that's kind of a little bit what we're going to go off of today, because we want to hear a little bit of everything.
Oh, yeah. This is such a vast subject.
Oh my God, yeah. Really all of the Sabbats, but I feel like especially Yule, because this is definitely the one that is most celebrated currently.
Right. A lot of times you don't even realize. And
Exactly.
Not that Christmas is a one-for-one with Yule, but it's... obviously you will explain why, but
Yule, come on.
There's a reason. I know, right? There's a reason
fun.
Why the word Yule comes up a lot in Christmas celebration.
Indeed. Now, for Wiccans, it's a little bit more of a specific kind of religious holiday where it is to commemorate the rebirth of the great horned hunter god. And, that is through the rebirth of the solstice, the reborn solstice sun. And, some Wiccans celebrate it privately and some with covens, just the same as any other person that celebrates Yule or Christmas.
Yeah.
So, of course, there are so many different aspects that have influenced Yule, but I think it is safe to say that the start of Yule was, of course, there to celebrate what we were saying before, the rebirth of the sun, the kind of new life is coming back, all that sort of thing. But specifically, I think we got to talk about our boy Odin.
Of course.
A lot of this has to do with celebrating and honoring Odin.
Ol' Odie.
Our boy. And the Norse tradition at this time was that this was a time to not just celebrate, but to venerate those aspects of life and those gods that they wanted to really lift up and worship and enjoy. And a way of doing that was by sacrifices. They were sacrifices done.
Whoa!
For the most part, it was animal sacrifices. I'm sure human, got in there somewhere at some point in history, somewhere.
Sure, human slipped in there somehow.
Yeah, but for the most part, and really it seems like, at least in, the Norse tradition, it was animals. And what they would do is a lot of farmers, they would bring in their animals, not all of their animals. Some of them had to, this is grim, but live a little bit longer to get, enough meat on them to eat. But some of them were ready to go. And some of them were even animals that maybe you necessarily wouldn't eat, like a horse.
Oh.
And what they would do is they would bring in these animals and they would create, they would sacrifice them. and they would have their blood sprinkled with these sacred twigs, and they would use these sacred twigs to kind of splatter the blood all over the idols that they had in their temple that they were venerating, as well as along the temple walls inside and outside, and as well as the people that were a part of the ceremony were, kind of sprinkled in this blood.
Oh.
It sounds spooky scary, and it kind of is. And this time of year is kind of spooky scary because a lot of people that we are talking about here today also believe that, similar to Samhain or Halloween, the veil is very thin here.
Hey, I like my veils thin.
Come on. And
I like them sheer.
Okay. Well, my veil was lace, so. And we do talk about this a little bit, in current times too, where it's like they have a lot of songs where it's like, and scary ghost stories of Christmases long, long ago.
That's right.
Telling ghost stories. A Christmas Carol is a ghost story.
Our listener stories every December, like
come
around
on.
the New Year, around the holiday season.
Yes. So even though being splattered with animal blood maybe doesn't make you think of the Christmas spirit, but it should make you think of spirit. All right, and they're around.
Yes.
They're around. Now, there are also ideas and some sort of sources that say that even pre-this, there were possible sacrifices that were made not only to gods, but to other beings as well, like elves, to, either protect them or bring them good fortune in the upcoming year, or to protect protect them from something specific like trolls.
Yeah.
Or other wild animals or what have you. But going back to the sacrifices that I was saying, the good thing about it too is that they didn't just, sacrifice these animals and, that was it. They did eat them as well. They didn't just go to waste. So they cooked them and they ate them for a big ol' feast.
Oh boy.
Now, during this big ol' feast, a lot of toasts were made and a lot of alcohol was drunk, I should say.
Yeah, of course.
It was wild. It really was required that you have the mead and the ale that were there. That was a part of the celebration and the ritual. It wasn't like, oh, I'll have a couple sips. It's like, you're getting drunk.
You're getting sloshed tonight, friend.
That's your objective for the day. Actually for the 12 days, we're about to get there.
Ooh.
Now, when the drinking began, though, the first toast, of course, was to Odin for victory and power to the king. Of course, then there were other toasts given to other gods, possibly for peace, for a good harvest. Then the toast was made to the king himself. And then, of course, going on to any passed on loved ones or anything like that. Similar to what I was saying before about the veil being thin here, it wasn't just with ghosts or passed on loved ones. It was really for also any kind of supernatural activity. It was believed that Odin was the one that kind of increased this, that was able to make the veil thin. So there are instances of Draugr, if you guys remember that. That was way back with our Snow Monsters episode we did.
That's right.
Was that last winter or the winter before? No one could know.
I can't remember, but
enjoy it though, please. We go into more depth there about what a Draugr is.
That's right.
But to simplify it big time, essentially it's like a soldier zombie.
Yeah.
That's frozen. Of course, way deeper than that, but essentially that's what you need to know for right now. Now, there were lots of other wonderful ways to really celebrate this time of year, and also Odin himself as well. And some of the big ways that they would do this, one was a Yule tree.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, there isn't one to my left and a slightly behind.
Yeah, there's not one that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. Now, the Yule tree, it is a symbol of life. These evergreen trees, when everything else around it is all, dead and dark, no leaves are left, anything like that, the evergreen tree still remains green. And this is a reminder that life will return, life continues on, and it is all gonna start coming back. And there's just something so special about bringing nature inside of your home.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very healing, and it's a very good way to remember that life is still plentiful and will return, even though it maybe doesn't seem like it at the time.
Right.
And these trees were often decorated for the tree spirits so that they would return back in spring. They also had a Yule wreath, which they also called a sun wheel. Basically, they would just take this thing, light it on fire, and just roll it down a damn hill.
Wow.
And that was done to welcome back the sun. Now, that turned into eventually what we know as just a regular old wreath that we don't light on fire and we just kind of hang on our door. And a lot of that, too, is it kind of shows the wheel of the year as well, the circle, to show that we're all in a cycle. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest ones, other than the Yule tree, I would say, would be the Yule log. Now, we're going to get more into all of these a little bit more later, depending on when we talk a little bit more about the UK and Ireland's way of celebrating. But it was a big old fucking log, and they would carve runes on it for protection from the gods. And it was supposed to be a flame for the whole feast. And then you're supposed to keep a bit of it and use it for the following year's fire.
Ah.
But here's the thing, we're talking 12 days. 12 days of Christmas, where does that come from? Most likely, or at least possibly, Yule was a 12-day feast. And that's kind of where they're getting it from. Or at least it was supposed to be a 12-day feast. There was 12 and 3 are kind of important numbers. They thought that the sun really stood still for those 3 days during and after the solstice, and then it begins to go back up and really starts to gain more and more light, more noticeably, and it ends on the 12th day. However, that wouldn't always happen because sometimes the alcohol ran out.
Oh, boy.
Come on. But the way that you would keep this log aflame that long, because I've always been like, what do you mean? Like, how is that possible?
You're right.
What I'm thinking in my head is like what we now use like as logs in a fireplace.
Yeah.
They took like basically the trunk of a damn tree and just start it at one end, and then as it burns, like push it further and further into their hearth or their fireplace. So that's how it stays, lit for so long. Hell yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Right. And there was a Yule boar, which was interesting. That was done as a sacrifice, and oaths were taken by the bristles of the boar. And to this day, a lot of people have that Christmas ham.
Oh my goodness.
That's kind of where that's from.
That's where the old Christmas ham comes from.
Yeah. Now, here is a word that I wrote down. I wrote it as Nefatafali. I can't imagine that's how it's pronounced, but it is, I believe, a Norwegian word. I'm not sure, but it essentially means playing board games. It was a type of board game that they would play during this celebration, and it would be very fun for people. There'd be a lot of frustration, a lot of emotions there, but a lot of fun. And it reminds me a lot of your family, Dylan.
Really?
Well, you guys, I feel like you guys are always about the damn games.
Yes, we are.
And
always.
You guys are always gaming. There's always some kind of board game going on in a good way.
Yes.
And
usually the adults are playing like some sort of a board game or like, dominoes or something like that. And then the kids, they're somewhere playing Mario Kart.
Yeah. Baby, that's pagan.
That's all. I mean, that's about as pagan as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, Mario? Come on.
Yeah.
He's a nature god. And there was also a Yule goat. Now, some people kind of have different thoughts about this. Some people are like, they think the Yule goat kind of comes from the fact that Thor's, Thor, the god.
Yeah.
Odin's son, I believe. His chariot was carried forth by goats. So some people think that is where the goats come from. But I am a little confused because, Thor is often associated with thunder. And also Odin is associated with lightning.
True.
But and that came up a lot in my research, but I'm a little confused because it's rarely thundering and lightning in winter,
Right.
So I wonder if maybe, is that a part of it because it's so rare? Or maybe I'm missing something.
Right.
But it's just interesting. But that is definitely a thought that it comes from Thor.
Absolutely.
And something that a lot of men would do would be they would dress in goat skins and they would go from house to house and they would sing a merry song. And then the people that they sung to, they would invite them in and they'd be given food and drinks and they would have a nice little time.
Right.
Does that remind you of anything? Christmas caroling?
That's right.
Yeah, essentially the same thing. Also, trick-or-treating.
That's actually very true as well.
And that reminds me, it is very interesting how Samhain and Yule are actually connected in a lot of ways, even though you wouldn't really think that.
And it's not just because of Jack Skellington.
Exactly. I just watched that the other night.
Yes.
You kind of did, but you fell asleep. So that's actually a great way to celebrate Yule.
Yeah.
Throw it on. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, this really reminds me a lot of trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
And, we go into a lot more of detail about Samhain and how all sorts of Halloween traditions got started in our episode. Once again, from way back in the day, we did a Samhain and Halloween origins episode. So if you're interested in that, check that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the reason why Yule was so closely associated with Odin to the Norse folk was because he was really the giver of life. He's the Mac Daddy.
Yeah, of course.
And he was also known as Old Man Winter. He got that long white beard, that whole vibe. And we've talked about this before in our Santa Claus episode, that Odin was a inspiration or a partial inspiration for Santa.
Yes.
Over the years, it just kind of became because he's got that long white beard. He's hanging out. He's got a nice hat. He's got a robe on. Honestly, he ate.
Goddamn.
Yeah. And a lot of people would dress up like him, kind of a fun time. And Odin was also kind of a precursor to Father Christmas as well, which is technically separate from Santa.
Yes.
Even though there's a lot of overlap there, but the main thing that currently we talk about is just that really Santa wears red and Father Christmas wears green. But there's a lot more differences to that. Once again, our Santa Claus episode talks about it.
Well, I love that this episode is kind of a prequel to that Santa Claus episode, which we technically recorded over a year ago.
I know. It just shows you life. I mean, we're in the wheel of the year. It's cyclical. We're celebrating Yule right now, recording this.
We are.
We love it.
We are. We love the Yultide.
Now, talking about Father Christmas, let's move a little bit away from the Germanic zone. We're going to head on over. We're going to Great Britain.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we're going to Ireland, too. We're having fun. Now, a lot of the way that Yule was celebrated and is celebrated there is very, very similar to what we were talking about when we were talking about the Scandinavia or just the Norse region.
Yes.
But there are, of course, so many other beautiful little additions and differences, and it's just so cool to see how different areas, experience things and celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there are very specific kind of areas where certain things were going on and certain things weren't. Like, Wales had their own version, then England did, then Ireland did, then Scotland did, but all very similar. And also, this was thousands of years ago, so the borders were different.
Yes. And of course, they borrowed from each other in countless ways.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, absolutely no disrespect by inadvertently lumping things together. I am trying to kind of separate things, but if I do lump stuff together, that's not my intention. I am sorry. But in this area, more Western Europe, off the continent, if you will, they had kind of their own version of a story that kind of brought in the winter solstice. And there was the story of the Holly King and the Oat King. And essentially, they're fighting. So the Oak King would always win and gain control until eventually the Holly King would win at the summer solstice. So essentially, the Oak King is from the winter to the summer, and the Holly is from the summer to the winter.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, and it's kind of confusing because it is that the Oak King is the king of the light and the Holly is the dark. But it's just kind of throws your head for a loop a little bit because you're like, the Oak King starts in the winter when it's dark, and the Holly King starts in the summer when it's light. But it's going into the darkness, going into the light. You understand?
Right.
And in this way, Holly was brought inside as a symbol of hope and also protection. And even though, like I mentioned before, a lot of the ways of celebrating were very similar, some of the differences I think are really, really beautiful and very, very interesting. One is mistletoe. Mistletoe was very sacred to the Druids. There are lots of thoughts about mistletoe that I've heard over the years that maybe a reason why people kiss under the mistletoe is because, soldiers would refuse to fight under mistletoe. It was thought to be like a very sacred place where you were supposed to come and you're supposed to have peace with each other and show each other, love rather than hate and fighting.
Right.
Also, it is thought by many to be a symbol of fertility in the upcoming year.
Absolutely.
Which we love. The Druids, they would get dressed in their sacred white robe with a golden sickle.
Whoa.
And they would use this golden sickle 6 days after the new moon closest to the winter solstice.
Okay.
And because of this, the moon would be a little bit in a crescent, just like a sickle.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
The idea was to cut mistletoe down from an oak tree without damaging the actual mistletoe.
Oh.
So it was a real ceremony. It wasn't just like you ran up there and you pulled some mistletoe out to put in your house. It was a big deal.
It's harvested very delicately.
Yes, of course. And the white baubles, kind of ball things that are on I guess they're berries. I don't even really know. But
yeah, some kind of vegetation.
yeah, they are associated with the moon. And really, a lot of midwinter festivals, including Yule, are very much moon festivals. We don't really think of it that way, but at this point in the year, we may be, in the northern hemisphere, tilted furthest away from the sun.
Right. We're seeing more of the moon.
We're the closest to the moon. This is the brightest the moon is all year long.
Right.
Which I just think that's so beautiful, and I love the moon, and I just think that's so cool that the moon is there for us when we don't have the bright light.
Yes.
So at its core, Yule in the Germanic region, as well as some further Eastern European regions and, the Western Europe regions as well, the idea of it is very similar. It's all about celebrating new birth, new life, and it's a fire festival. It's fire festival, but positive.
Yeah.
It worked out. It usually works out.
Yeah.
You don't just get a sandwich with just cheese and lettuce on it.
Right. Ja Rule's not there to...
Unfortunate. That is the one unfortunate part.
That is...
We
yes.
miss Ja.
Yeah.
If Ja can be at your Yule celebration, you're good for life.
Did I ever tell you about the time I saw Ja Rule at the airport?
Literally, of course.
Okay, maybe I'll save that for the Patreon.
If you want to know Dylan's story about seeing Ja Rule, head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast.
Because it's kind of a funny story.
It is. But I would love to go into a little bit more of specifics about how other areas celebrated that were maybe different from the main kind of Norse Odin Yule vibes. Now, in the Slavic region, they had some very interesting, similar, yet different ways of celebrating this time of year.
Okay.
They had their own version where their word for Yule, once again, it's not literally Yule, it's their own word for this celebration. It means to make a step or step forward.
All right.
So kind of similar, just moving forward into the new year, new beginnings.
Of course. Who doesn't like that?
Of course. There they have Father Frost, kind of a similar figure to Odin or Father Christmas or Old Man Winter or Santa.
Or old Jack Frost.
Yes.
That's interesting. God, I love that.
It's really cool. They also do door-to-door singing, and they also dress up to embody dead ancestors. And this is to drive away bad spirits from the home, but to bring in blessings from those ancestors. And a place that they would often celebrate and have their bonfire would actually be in a graveyard. And this was to venerate the spirits of our ancestors, to honor and warm them. And just like I said before, they also believed that this was a time where the dead were more easily contacted. And they would do this all the time, for at least for a long time, but especially at this time of year, physical cleansing was also important. It was to bring in good luck and good health and purity into the new year. Now, the Baltic region has very similar practices to the Slavic region, but a couple of things that they do specifically, which is very cool. They would leave a spot at the table for people who have passed away in their family. And they would also leave the food on the table all night long. They wouldn't clear it out so that those loved ones would be able to partake in the feast once everyone else had gone to bed. Now, here we're going back west, Western Europe. In the Welsh tradition, oftentimes they would have a horse skull with them, and especially men, they would gather together as a very merry thing, and they would go from door to door, and they would essentially engage in a rhyming battle with the homeowner. I mean, this is wild and out.
And this is like ancient.
Yes, and people do it today now too, but this, goes way the fuck back.
Wow.
Yeah, this is like a Yule thing. They would have a little lighthearted rhyming battle with whoever was in the home, and then if the people with the horse skull outside won, they would come on in and they would have a nice little snack. We've talked about this before, and similar to what we were saying, Christmas caroling, trick-or-treating, all of that kind of thing.
Well, when you listen to the famous carol, We Wish You a Merry Christmas, then
Right.
there's the, now bring us a figgy pudding and bring it right here.
Yes.
That's a threat.
They're saying, like, we kept our end of the bargain. Bring us a goddamn figgy pudding.
I mean, that's not a request. That's an order.
And what's crazy to me is when they say figgy pudding, they mean like a damn cake.
Yeah.
In Celtic tradition, this time of year is very much associated with the goddess Brigid, or that's kind of the current name for her, but I think it's Breed is how you say it. I don't know too much about this. If anyone else out there knows more, please reach out. I'd love to know because, she's very associated with this time, kind of also a bringer of light and everything. But then people started to be like, when Christianity came along and they were kind of trying to combine everything, they were like, oh, Brigid, she was a midwife to Virgin Mary. But that doesn't make any sense. They were like not alive at the same time, and that one is wild to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, what?
Yeah.
She's in Ireland, girl.
That's interesting.
What do
yeah.
you mean? She's not in Bethlehem, for Christ's sake. Oh, and really quick before I forget, I kind of meant to mention this before. This also could be completely unrelated, but I just also think it's interesting that, it's around this time of year that Hanukkah happens.
Yes, and in fact, as we record this, I believe it is the third night of Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah, if you celebrate Mazel Tov. But that is also known as the Festival of Light, which is all, what basically Yule is a festival of light. Yes. And a way that you can celebrate Yule is just by lighting candles and having them lit for the whole time. In Hanukkah, the 8 or 9 candles aren't lit the whole time, but it's just
right.
But it's just a similar thing. It could be completely different there, but I just thought that was also interesting to note.
Yes, very interesting.
Yes. But going on back to Western Europe here for a moment. In Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, apparently, as far as I know, it was common for a group of boys to get together and they would kill a wren, which is a bird. Yeah. And they would go around from house to house or from, wherever, and people would offer them treats to be able to see the wren. So they, would able to get, once again, the treats, it's a kind of an interesting transaction there. Ah. And another thing where we're getting offerings, we're receiving treats for something, we're seeing that again and again. And why this happened was wrens often represented the old year or winter. So more so, they were not so much into the wren. They were like, that was old, that was last year. They, wrens were important. It's not like they hated wrens. It was more symbolic. But then they would kind of lean more into the raven going forward, which is kind of interesting because we now kind of think of ravens as like spooky because of Edgar Allan Poe. But they really represented wealth and luck and kind of fun stuff for the new year. It also seems like robins were kind of harbingers of good luck, and the druids were all about robins. And it is thought that if you see a robin on Yule or during Yule, you can ask them for a wish and they will grant it.
Well.
Yes, it's thought that their chests are red because they are bringing in the light and the fire of the new year. And red represents protection, joy, fertility. And even though it's, everything is so many things are dead around you, you wouldn't really necessarily think of Yule as a fertility time, but really it is because, like we said, it's the start of the new beginning. So the aspects of fertility are very important. That's another thing with the mistletoe that comes in. And yes, so it's a very elevated time.
Yes.
Now, here are some other ways that people would celebrate, just kind of in general. This, I would say, mainly applies to Western Europe, but I think it does apply to many other places as well. This was just a time to make merry. It's a time to have fun, do good things for other people, just to enjoy this time of year and to bring light and levity into everything. Something that people would do often would be wassailing, which I know we've heard in lots of songs.
Yes, here we come a wassailing.
Wassailing. Or maybe that's, are you supposed to wassail?
Well, I think it's wassail, but to make the song work, you kind of have to say wassailing.
Which I understand. Even though now a lot of people think of it as like either a cup that you like are drinking from, or it's like the actual drink you're drinking.
Yeah. Or
the activity of kind of like going around and singing or whatever. It originally comes from just straight up beating up trees. You would just go out there and you'd beat up a tree. The idea is that you would beat life back into the trees, and this would kind of venerate the mother tree of the orchard. And how you would do that, you would, around that tree, you would put in cider or port or wine, and the idea was that you are awakening these spirits of the tree and that you are ensuring a good harvest.
Well, I'm sure the trees appreciated that.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to be thrown the fuck around.
I know, like, you can get sap, or like the stuff
gotta,
to make like
syrup
that,
with,
you tap it. It's almost like a valve.
Right.
But yeah, this just
that's not really that. They're just hitting it.
They're just beating the shit out of that tree.
It's a little bit of a shoot and scoot. Going back to the Yule log for a moment here, some people I've read it's saying that it's an oak tree, and then some saying that it's an ash tree, to bring in better luck and good fortune. So I don't really know actually for sure, but it's either oak or ash, so get that. And with the Yule log, you didn't just burn it and just carve a couple runes in it. It was also important to decorate it as well. Pour your mead over it that you love. Put some greenery on there, meaning actual greenery and not just weed, but that would work too. And it really would just become the focal point of the celebration, especially within the home. And I just love that tradition. And of course, now a lot of people, we have turned that really into a cake, where you make a Yule log. My aunt makes one every damn year.
Well, good golly.
Yeah. Once again, not just your tree, but to bring in other, greens inside, if that's holly, ivy, other garlands, things like that. This is a way to energize your home and to also let nature spirits know that your home is a safe haven and that they're able to escape in there from the cold. And this was also not just for any nature spirits, but for fae specifically too, that fae were allowed to come inside. Also, a wonderful time to really lift up children, enjoy them, and make sure that this is a special time for them because they are the beginning, they are the next, they are growing more than anyone else, and they really embody the spirit of this time. And, it's important to give them presents. That didn't just start, that's not just like a commercialized thing.
Yeah.
That goes all the way back to, Odin. Someone would be, dressed up as Old Man Winter and giving presents to the kids.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's all about to bring in abundance into your upcoming year. Also, lighting all sorts of candles, red candles specifically, because that represents protection, joy, and fertility. Also, this might be more specific to Scotland, but it could be elsewhere as well, where a man would dress up in bull hide, even with the horns, and people would then beat the hide. Like, I don't think it would just be like attacking this man. It's like you're just hitting the bull hide. And once again, it's a similar thing where this person who was dressed up like this with, his mates, they would go from door to door, try to get people outside and to just
to beat the bull
and to just have a damn good time. Also a time to venerate just people with wisdom. So even though it's the beginning of new life, so we want to, really make this a special time for kids, we want to make it a special time for our wise elders as well, that can give us wisdom and wealth of knowledge into the upcoming year. But some people, not everyone, as we know, was into it.
No.
A lot of people right from the start when Christmas started becoming combined with Yule, people didn't like it.
No, they did not.
Because there's nothing in the Bible that says that Christmas is on December 25th.
Not at all.
There's a lot of, talk about what, when we think Jesus was born,
right.
when a lot of different opinions there.
Yes.
And there's a little bit of debate here about whether Christmas was placed near Yule because of an old calendar and that's when it fell, or if it was more so the Christians trying to combine Yule with Christmas to get pagans to assimilate more into Christianity.
Yeah.
And they did that with all sorts. I mean, you just see it everywhere.
All sorts of holidays.
Yeah, so
Easter
that seems like it to me. Is Ostara.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's funny is so many of these early cultures before Christianity, many of them, like the Celtics and stuff, they passed down their lineage, their stories via oral tradition.
Right.
They didn't write things down.
Yeah.
So really all we know, I mean, with exception, what we know about a lot of these ancient civilizations is through the Roman idea of what they saw. And so really it's their take on who these ancient civilizations were. So you always have to have that little grain of salt as well.
Exactly. And it's funny you mentioned Rome because I wanted to touch on what I mentioned a little bit before, which is Saturnalia, the celebration of Saturn, which was the ancient Roman celebration in mid to late December. I think it's December 17th is usually when it would be, or when it was. And that was the current celebration that was going on in Rome before Christianity popped off there. Saturnalia, it's different from Yule, and I think part of that too is because it's in southern Europe and maybe it's not as big of a deal that I mean, of course, I'm not saying that winter doesn't happen in Italy. It's not like I'm not saying that, but it's just not as stark of a difference from winter to summer like it is in, Sweden.
You're right.
But they celebrated Saturnalia, of course, the celebration of the god Saturn. And even though they didn't have maybe as much of the bringing in evergreens and nature and things like that, it was still a lot of light. It was all about light coming back and new birth. And it was really a time about breaking social norms and having fun, making merry, doing all that sorts of things, dancing, gift giving. And it was also a role reversal kind of time where enslaved people would become in charge of their slavers.
Yes.
For a little while. And of course, we know this from the slavers' point of view. So it might have not gone over as well as it's written about, but
might not have been as congenial as they would make it seem.
The idea of it was that it was embodying this golden age for Rome when Saturn was, king or emperor or whatever you want to call it. And at that time there was no slavery. It was kind of just like this group society. I don't know if you would call it communism. I don't really know what you would call it, but it was just a time of great peace and equality. And it's just kind of funny that they celebrate that golden age of Rome by still having slaves and having, the enslaved people be a part of the celebration.
Right.
Oh, some of the enslaved people would be able to eat dinner at the table with, and that maybe their slavers would, that would serve them dinner or whatever. But
It's when you zoom out, it's very condescending on top of.
And it's they're still enslaved.
They're still enslaved. enslaved, and it's like they're not really going to be able to do what they want to do.
Right.
Like there's obviously limits to that.
Exactly. And kind of a way to like just appease the enslaved people to be like, just hold on out. You'll have that day where you can it's the purge or, or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, not really. But, the idea of it being businesses were closed and there was light everywhere and it was just a time to have fun, a time for joy. Now, before I give you my suggestions on how you can celebrate Yule this year, Dylan, I think we need to read that ritual from our lovely source this week.
Yes, we are going to do a brief reading. It's only a couple pages.
Yeah, it's not long.
From the book, Raymond Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. And just so you know, Raymond Buckland was a prominent Wiccan figure. And in this book, at the very beginning of this book, he said his intention was to make a sort of non-denominational way to practice the craft, but also to do many things, and one of which was celebrate these Sabbats. So this is not a Celtic or a Norse version. This is I guess you would say, a non-denominational Wiccan way of celebrating the winter Sabbath. So let's go ahead and we will read directly from the book. And just so you know, some of this is like text and some of this is actual like lines, almost like a script that Maureen and I will recite.
Yes. So if you wanted to do this yourself and you are not Wiccan, you can remove or adjust some of the things because Wiccans do believe in gods and things like that.
Right.
So you can take out our mention of gods here and you can replace it with nothing or whatever you want.
Exactly. And I think we've said this on the show before, but witchcraft itself is not actually a religion.
Right.
It is a tool set.
Yeah.
In a way. I mean, that's kind of maybe a reductive way of saying it, but it's essentially a way of practicing. So that's why, you can technically be a Christian witch, a Hindu, you can be really even like an agnostic witch or any kind of witch you want. It's because witchcraft itself is not a religion. Now, Wicca is a religion that is built around the tentpoles of witchcraft.
Right. All Wiccans are witches, but not all witches are Wiccans.
You got it.
Dylan, will you please begin?
Winter Solstice Sabbath. The altar cloth and the candles should be purple. The circle may be decorated with holly, mistletoe, ivy, etc. There is a cauldron in the south filled with kindling. The priest's horned helmet is beside the altar. Short tapers, one for each covener, lie on the altar. The bell is rung 3 times. Priest sits or kneels in the center of the circle.
Blessed are the gods who turn the mighty wheel. Welcome thrice to Yule. The turning point of winter is upon us. Here is an end to the solar year, but here too is a new beginning.
Brothers, sisters, friends, let us show our love by sending forth our power and our strength to He who is the sun god. At this turning of the year's tide, let us join our energies with His, that He may be reborn to ascend once more unto His rightful place.
Now the coveners and priestess will join hands and circle, docile, chanting.
Turn, turn, turn the wheel. Round and round around it goes. The flame that died, it now doth heal. Round and round around it goes. Return, return, return to life. Round and round around it goes. Welcome sunlight, farewell strife. Round and round around it goes. The Sun Lord dies, the Sun Lord lives. Round and round around it goes. Death opens hands and new life gives. Round and round around it goes. Turn, turn, turn the wheel. Round and round around it goes. The flame that died, it now doth heal. Round and round around it goes.
This may be kept up for as long as desired. Then, while still circling, priestess says,
Let us kindle fresh fire to light our Lord upon his way.
Fire for strength, fire for life, fire for love.
As they pass the altar, priestess first, then each covener takes up a taper and lights it from the altar candle. Continuing around the circle, when the cauldron is reached, the taper is thrown in to light the kindling and then add to it. When all have thrown in their tapers, circling stops with priestess before the altar. She takes up the horned helmet and moves around to stand before the kneeling priest.
May all our power, which is all, strengthen the newborn Lord.
Priestess places horned helmet on the priest's head. He comes to his feet and raises his hands high.
Life, love, I am the Sun Lord.
He lowers his hands, then moves slowly around the circle, speaking as though talking to each individual covener as he moves around.
I fell into deep darkness, and death I knew. Yet was I of starseed. On the tail of a comet I rent the velvet darkness of everlasting light. Ablaze with glory I was reborn, to start again the perennial circle of guardianship that evermore drives me through death and birth alike. With the companionship of Our Lady, I face into the wind, knowing that we fly upon wings of time through timeless worlds together.
All hail the sun god.
All hail the sun god.
All hail the death and birth of Yule.
All hail.
Bell is rung 7 times. Priest and priestess join hands and lead coveners in a dance about the circle. Bell is rung 3 times. Then shall follow the ceremony of cake and ale. After that, the clearing of the temple is performed so that there is plenty of room for fun, games, and entertainment. The evening concludes with a feast. And there we have it.
That is just an option for you if you are interested. Now I will give some other suggestions of ways that I think you can celebrate Yule if you want to do a full-out ritual or if you just want to kind of have a little decorations around your home.
Yes.
But before I do that really quickly, I can't believe I didn't say this, but Stonehenge is a huge part of this because it is aligned perfectly with where the sun sets on Yule.
Ah, yes.
So that was just a big one that I didn't say.
Well,
Happy
we
to
got
say
it in there.
We got it in. That's all that matters. Here's some ways that I recommend that you can celebrate. One is to just plant a seed or a bulb. It can be inside. I mean, it probably is inside, but just a way to see this new life. And if you want to add a little extra zhuzh to it, set an intention as you are planting the seed. Also, light a candle, a symbol of the sun, and it shows that light and energy is coming back. Give back to nature. Maybe if you have something in your home that is natural, biodegradable, everything that you have. Like maybe you have some for whatever reason, leaves in your home or rocks in your home or anything like that. Maybe giving that back to the earth is a good way to celebrate.
Yes.
You don't have to bring in a whole damn tree if you don't want to, but bringing in a tree or other aspects of life into your home. Also, be grateful. To practice your gratitude and remember all the good things in your life and the abundance that you're bringing into the new year.
Yes. And I know that sounds so obvious.
I know.
But it's something we could all do. I know I need to remember
to
be grateful all the time. I mean, that's normal and it's a healthy thing to do.
Absolutely.
Even just from take out religion, from a psychological standpoint, it's actually a very healthy thing to do.
Absolutely. Another way is to clean out your hearth, your whole home, but especially your hearth. So you're starting your new year with a fresh slate with everything new and you are beginning anew. Another way is to make moon water because this is a moon festival. Now, how to make moon water, I don't know exactly. It's easy to find out though, I'm sure, and I'm sure many of you already know. Essentially, I think it is just having some water outside at night so the moon is there and setting some intentions, I think, and then you can use that water to protect and bless you moving forward. Now, another one is just to get cozy, cuddle, get snuggly, be with your family, be with your loved ones, and just have a good time. But overall, I would say the main aspects are to set intentions for your new year. Focus on the new beginnings and the excitement ahead of you. Practice gratitude and to just enjoy and relax. Folks, as far as I know, that's Yule.
Maureen, thank you for that in-depth research. This was a bigger episode than we expected it to be.
I know. Both while I was researching it and recording it, it was longer than I thought. But I hope this is a lovely winter solstice surprise for you all.
Well, Maureen, I'll tell you what I'm thankful for this Yultide. I'm thankful for you. Thankful for Banshee. I'm thankful that not only are we able to make this show, and we've been able to make it for so long, and we've developed this wonderful, wonderful community that I am so grateful to. I'm especially thankful for our top-tier Patreon subscribers.
Here we go. Let's go.
Folks, give it on up for our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Lungfus, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Serve Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Zhang, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, the Antagonist Andrew Park, the Monstrous Michaela Schur, the Witchy Wonder J.P. Weimer, the Freaky Ben Forsyth, the Barbaric Andrew Barry, the Mysterious Marcella, and the Hellacious Gail Hoffman.
Wow, that was astute and incredible. Thank you so much to our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Ooh, you are the perfect Christmas gift. Woo! Thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, no matter the tier. And thank you so much to all of you for listening. We love you. We're so grateful for you. But it is important to note that the best way to honor Odin this winter is to join our Patreon.
And to give us those listener stories.
Please, big time, we would love your listener stories. Please get those in ASAP. We want to hear all about them. Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, share us on social media, anything like that. It really, really helps out the show. And we want to grow this baby out. And, we're growing into the new year. And we just so appreciate all your support and encouragement.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye.